Hi, everybody, it's Weird Wink Wilkinson laughing and scratching at you. How's everybody doing today? I got a little bit of a stiff neck. Let me just fix this up. Oh, that feels a lot better. Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel so very weird.
There are some things in this world that go way beyond human understanding. Things that cannot be explained, things that most people don't want to know about. That is where we come in.
No human being would stack books like this.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. I'm all out of bubblegum.
Well, it looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is paying 101. The instructor's Casey Jones.
Look, I don't want to fight you.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
Do you want some coffee, Mr. Tully?
Do I? Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
It's a cup of coffee in the big time, yeah. Cup of coffee in the big time.
Hey, what do you say we both be independent together, huh?
I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
We have the tools, we have the talent.
It's Miller time.
Luminous beings, so we, not this fruit factor.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Hey, these aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Well, that's great. Either I have a monster in my kitchen or I'm completely crazy.
I don't think you're crazy.
You know something? Maybe I am insane. Maybe I am insane.
Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Rise to the top, oh yeah.
That's the nicest thing a dog can say about anybody.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Enough, I get the point. You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
Sometimes happens, someone has to deal with it, and who are you gonna call?
It's showtime.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hello. What's up? Welcome to Alterna Comics Live. Alterna Comics Live. Comic Book Radio. I have Alterna Comics on the mind. And that's because I have to talk to you guys tonight about Alterna Comics stuff, too. But also largely more about a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with this channel, with other things professionally, and I'll dive into that. But I got to say, this is episode 299, and if you're listening to this for the first time, you'd think, has this guy ever done one of these before? This whole new setup with, I'm using Restream now in case it's not apparent, instead of StreamYard. This whole new setup on here, I'm going to need at least 5 shows to get used to it. It's not confusing necessarily. It's not like it's a bad interface. It's not like it's too difficult. It's just, things aren't really where they usually were before because it's different than StreamYard. And, playing the intro and then transitioning to the regular show is a little bit different, I'm using the free version of Restream right now. I'm not paying for it yet. I want to see how much use can I get out of the free one as opposed to the upgraded version. And the reason why I'm not just sticking to StreamYard for free, because I canceled being with them, is because their pricing now is so unbelievably high. I can't justify it, and it irritated me to the extent that I just said I'm not using that anymore. uh, Full disclosure, I was paying. I got a $200 lifetime discount or whatever for a year, and I had the first plan that you have to pay for. I didn't have like the crazy business or professional or however they word it plan. I didn't have that. And it was good. They did a good job with stuff, but then they started adding a lot of useless features, that just weren't worth the upgrade. But I figured, hey, if they're throwing some stuff at it, whatever, that's not why I'm there. That's not why I was really paying for the 200 a year. But then they wanted to increase the price, and I think they increased the price months ago. But my plan was rolling into effect in August, and they wanted to double the amount of it, so 400 a year, and that was with the discount. Not with the discount. Like if I wanted to, now that I've canceled it, if I wanted to get into it now, I think it quoted me at like $800 something for a year for like a basic whatever plan, 800 a year. And even at 400 a year, I thought that was nuts, because like what I'm using right now on Restream is free. But with StreamYard, they cap the amount of monthly streaming you could do. I don't know what it was. I think it was like 12 hours a month or something, and that's fine. I get it, but it just wasn't worth it to me to even stick around there, even using the free plan. And it's weird because when I went into it, the thing is so locked into, like, it still has the comic book radio overlay. It still has all the little, but it won't let me take those down. It's weird. It's like you can't access this feature unless you upgrade. It had a lot of stuff like that. Can't play a video on there for free. Like can't have the video intro for free. So there's a lot of different things that I could do on here with the free plan as opposed to staying on StreamYard with the free plan. But it was not a decision that I necessarily made lightly, but I really made quickly because I'm not paying $400 a year. I'm definitely not going to pay $800 a year. So whoever's on there, you're on there. Good for you. But just not for me anymore. Not for me anymore. That's just crazy. So I'm on Restream now. It's going to take a couple of shows to get used to the setup and finagle the buttons and where they're supposed to be and all that crap. But, this is part of the changing direction. Now, last time I did a show, I can't believe I think it's been a week already. Yeah, it's been a week already. Last week when I was on with Matt Moylan, and every time I'm really sorry, Matt. Every time I say his last name, I'm always thinking of Merlin the Magician, but like with a Jersey accent, Matt Moylan. Anyway, sorry, Matt. Love you. Last week I was on and I couldn't figure out how to get the intro going, and it just didn't happen. And it was a big mess of like 20 seconds or something of dead air at the start. Thank you to everybody who stuck with that show. It was a great conversation. It's always a good conversation with Matt, with him having some insight as to specifically what's going on with the situation with the fallout of Diamond and how that whole thing is getting handled or mishandled. What a nightmare. When we left 5 years ago in April 2020, I could not have foreseen the gigantic mess that it would have been. I knew it would have been some kind of a mess, but it's a huge mess. If you're not familiar with what's going on with the Diamond situation and you don't want to watch last week's video, even though you should, last week's video, Matt really touched upon a lot of stuff that's hitting them specifically and also hitting a lot of other publishers in regards to their inventory that's kind of being held hostage and that Diamond doesn't necessarily own, but they're treating it like they do. And that's just baffling. You could look into it at your own peril. It's a complex, convoluted problem. And I don't recommend, if you don't really care for that kind of inside baseball as far as comics go, I don't blame you. but it's something. I'm out of it for 5 years now, and I still look at it and I go, wow, what a huge mess, and it's gonna do some damage. I think for a lot of people, it's gonna get a little worse before it gets better, and that was kind of his take too. He was kind of almost resigned to kissing that inventory goodbye, unless things change. So tonight's episode, I'm almost done with getting started. I feel like that's kind of where I've been for a little while now. I always feel like I'm in the middle of a project, getting started with it, and it always kind of feels like I'm perpetually getting started. And I'm looking at a bunch of different things that have been going on within my professional life, and thinking, okay, I'm cutting away from dependency on the newsprint printer. We got that situation covered. Uh, Now we got a good printer to do things like the remastered books and the Hall of Fame books. So that's kind of, for now, at least one fire that's been put out. Then, I'm looking at things like creating, or at least being in the production of, Blood Moon, King Cryptid 10 to 13, and even though there's delays on both of those fronts, yeah, I'm always learning more and more about why the delays occurred, what's happened to kind of cause those things, and what part I've played in it, either handling it, mishandling it, however my part may be, and then maybe on how to not do that for the future. So I really appreciate everybody's patience and understanding as far as that front always goes, because there's always something of, the same reasons for some kind of a delay on one thing. It doesn't mean that delay occurs on everything. So there's always like a new reason that pops up. There's always something that comes up in life, and there's always things that you got to deal with. And you guys do this stuff all the time. So what am I talking about? The way it is. Everybody here, I think, has a job to some extent, has dealt with difficulties in life. And that kind of brings me to my next part of conversations on the channel. And I want to start having more conversations on the channel with people. I know this is going to sound weird. People that they love comic books, they make comic books. Maybe they don't need to make comic books, but love for comic books is good. It's a prerequisite. But I'd like to have a conversation with people who are in that corner, but not necessarily about comic books. And what I mean is that I'd like to have like more meaningful conversations with people who are maybe doing something interesting or unique, or thinking outside the box, whether it's comics or something else. Maybe they're doing something in their community. Maybe they got a really interesting day job. There's a lot of things going on within the realm, especially of indie comics, where people have day jobs, or maybe two. I certainly did. I had 2 day jobs for about the first 7 years of Alterna, being a substitute teacher, working retail, all this other kind of stuff too. And then kind of sneaking away hours at night, or on my days off, or sometimes, during a break or things like that, to work on comics or to get comic stuff done. And I'm really curious as to the people out there that are doing all these things that we kind of just don't know about. There's a lot of people out there that obviously maybe they're going through a lot with stuff. Maybe they've got something really interesting and they want to talk about it. Maybe they're really knowledgeable about something, and they'd like to talk about it. And the reason why I say this is because, seriously, there's only so much I think we can absorb or want to hear about in terms of like the sell me something spiel. At least I'm at that point, and if I'm going to be kind of like hosting, co-hosting, whatever it is you want to call me, if I'm going to be something like that, I gotta feel like I'm, at least interested in what's occurring. And I hate to say it like that, because I'm really obviously concerned about what you guys are interested in. But if I'm not interested, it's going to be really difficult for me to want to even do this. And I know that sounds both selfish and at the same time understandable. I hope, like if you picture, I don't know, picture you're me, and if you got to talk to somebody about a situation and say the same things again and have the same conversation again, but it's a different person, and it's kind of like I don't thrive well in that environment. I want to have conversations that feel like they matter more, like that I'm kind of learning about something, and that maybe hopefully in that context, maybe you guys are learning about something or someone. So again, we'd still talk a little bit about comics, but it would mostly be about other things, and just kind of have that kind of conversation. Now, whether or not I can find people to do that, I don't know. I hope I can. If you guys have recommendations, if you guys even in the chat, if you're like, hey, I kind of got an interesting life. I give back to my community. I do something that I think is of value. I'm trying to, do this, that, the other thing, whatever. Reach out to me. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat, which I'll be reading shortly. Because I think we all have varying interests too. I know this is comic book radio, even though I don't have the banner anymore. I can't do that because Restream is free and I got to upgrade for that. And I'm not doing that just yet. Maybe not ever. But at the same time, comics, I feel, is like the unifier. And I'd like to kind of highlight, look at how many different things people can be into and knowledgeable of, but we all love comic books, And I think that that's kind of interesting. At least that interests me. Like I always try to do a show that I think I would want to watch, and because I could sit here and guess what you guys want to watch. I could ask you directly. Maybe you'll tell me. Maybe you won't. But even if you do, it's only a couple people maybe that would even offer that up. But at the end of the day, like I only really know what I would like to see, the conversations I would like to have, and the conversations I'd like to be a part of. So that's kind of the big direction that I want to shift the show to. Again, I hope I can find people to fill that gap. Before I dive into the rest of it, I'm going to talk to you guys in the chat, say hello to you guys, and then I'll move on to all the other stuff in terms of, this is just going to be me tonight. There's no guest on the show. It's just going to be an hour of me talking about updates on the channel, updates with Alterna, all that kind of stuff. So if you're in for it, then I'm glad to have you. All right, let's see here. We got Dr. Crow. Says, one away from 300. I know, right? Crazy. The next episode of Comic Book Radio is 300. And I mean, truth be told, I think I've done something like 1,000 YouTube videos at this point between the Alterna channel and mine. And I don't even want to chime in with the count on interviews I've been on other channels. It's easily 1,000 at this point altogether. And I definitely never thought I would get to this point. But specifically for the show, 300 episodes, we're coming upon that, and that's fantastic. Thank you guys so much. Some of you guys have been here for every single one of them just about. So thank you. Citizen Ronan says, sup, everybody. All right. We got Wayne here, too. What's up, Wayne? Cole King here says, my man, great to see you. Great to see you, too, Cole. And we got Dr. Carnival saying StreamYard's prices got crazy. Yeah, they really did. I don't know how they can justify it. I mean, I don't even know how people could justify it, to be perfectly honest, unless you were some kind of, raking it in. You're making a lot of money on YouTube, whatever it may be. I'm lucky enough if I make like $100 every 3 months or something like that. So I can see if you're someone who's like deeply committed and, maybe you're making like 100 a day or more. There's tons of people out there that do that, but I can't justify, literally anything I make off of YouTube goes right back into StreamYard. That feels kind of strange. 400 a year, and that's at the discount. I just can't do that. Citizen Ronan says a lot of people have dumped it. I don't blame them. I really wish YouTube would just get back into the swing of things the way they used to have Google Hangouts, remember? And you could actually invite somebody and they could stream with you or whatever. I know you could, like what I'm doing right now, I could just do it on YouTube and go live there. I'm not sure if you get full access to the different features. I haven't used like YouTube Studio in a long time. So I don't know if you could have the video and do the whatever. And I think you can't highlight chat stuff that pops up. Like it's different, but if anything, you'd figure YouTube in and of itself would have a really advanced version of streaming where it's such a huge thing at this point. But hey, whatever. Crenshaw says, I like Restream. I paid for a year and need to use it more. There you go. Let's see. We got Frederick here. What's up, Frederick? Good to see you. Metatron's Cube says, that's crazy about the StreamYard prices. AL, what's up, AL? Good to see you as well. We got Dr. Mask here, too. How's it going? Good evening to you. Headless Bourgeoisie is here. How's it going, Headless? Let's see. Dr. Crow says, I guess diamonds aren't forever. Yeah, that's the one to go to in terms of a, whatever. Is that a kind of like a tease, I suppose, I think I've actually used that tease before in a show title. Killer Kovac says, your Leaving Diamond stream is still up, though. Yep, it should be. Is it be either on the alternate channel or on mine? I mean, I've talked about it kind of ad nauseum in terms of like the way it played out. But there should be one on the alternate channel. If not, there's probably one on my channel. Look for it was around April 15th of 2020. So look for a video that's either on or a little bit after that date, and you'll find it. Sheldon Martin says, took me 40 years, but I think I'm done with getting started too. Yeah, you understand. You understand. Bretsky, what's up, Bretsky? Good to see you, man. How's it going? Let's see. Crenshaw says, dang, I have a really uninteresting day job. Hey, you never know. Maybe you've got a really interesting one and you just think it's uninteresting. Headless says, I have an extraordinarily boring day job. There you go. Well, it is what it is. You do anything long enough, you'd probably say it's extremely boring. Like I would think what I have at this point is kind of extremely boring, but not to me, but maybe to somebody. I don't know. Let's see. Killer says, been obsessed with physics videos. Yeah, see, everyone's into something, Crenshaw says, that's sort of why I stopped streaming, to sell my book to other folks selling their books. Lost interest pretty quickly, and I think people lose interest with that. But most importantly, I think the hosts of the shows lose interest with it. And then it kind of infects everything. And I haven't had a show like that. I don't think there's really been any comic book radio episode that's been kind of like the infomercial power hour. We usually touch upon promotion and selling something or whatever it may be. But it's not really just, let's look at the campaign for an hour and you talk about whatever's on there. I don't really run shows like that. I don't like to even really be on shows like that, to be perfectly honest. I know some people run their channels that way, and God bless them. They can run them however they want. If they enjoy doing that, that's great. But it's tough. Like when I go on a channel, I want to have a conversation about a variety of topics, or even about something that's more, at least, than just here's the campaign or here's the product and let's just talk about that for like an hour. That's, I think, kind of rough. At least I've always viewed it that way and have felt that way. But I've done enough of these where at this point I know I at least don't want to run a channel where videos are like that. And now I'm really coming around to, how many times can I talk to someone about their creative process, or what's their take on comic books or whatever, I think that'll find its way into the conversation, but I think you find, at least I find, you end up having, because you feel the way you feel. If you're consistent with the topic, if you're consistent with your views on the topic, you're kind of going to end up saying the same thing relatively all the time, unless there's been some massive shift that has occurred as to making you think otherwise or speak about something otherwise. And that usually doesn't happen. So if you go wishy-washy all crazy with it, and you're just like, well, now this is my take on it, and every single video with someone is a different take, I think you end up getting the other problem of people can't trust you about anything in terms of what you're saying, because there's no consistency there. But I think that there's a never-ending supply of stuff to talk about. It's just, if it's always about the comic, if it's always about the process, if it's always about stuff like that, I don't mind fielding questions from people. But in terms of interviews and conversation, when I have people on the show, I would like to branch out more into the other aspects of things. So I'm going to be having more of those kinds of discussions on the show, as opposed to, so what are you using there to ink with? What's your take on the thought balloon, which has gotten me into quite a bit of trouble over the past week? Apparently, I have someone who years ago was on the show who's very upset that I chuckled at his opinion of having no thought balloons in his book, and I prefer thought balloons. And I suppose that I scarred him for life, and he's very upset. He was on Twitter about it, all upset, and I feel like tough shit, to be perfectly honest. It's like, because you know what? If you don't like thought balloons, that's okay. If you don't want to use them, that's okay. If you don't think that they serve a purpose or whatever, that's okay. I mean, and if you don't like that I like that, seriously, tough shit. I like them. And conversely, tough shit for me if you don't like them. Like, I don't know, people. But I was like, wow, okay. I barely remember you. And I'm like, that's crazy that you really, that hit you hard, man. You have a beautiful life. And I say, you got to have a beautiful life if you're that upset about something like that years later, because the amount of things that I think the average person, at least myself, the amount of things that I've been through since we had that conversation, that if it was even reversed and he just kind of was like, Pete, that's the stupidest thing. Thought balloons are so dumb. So they're awful, right? That wouldn't even register in my mind at this point anymore, because of how much crap I've been through since that time. So the fact that like you're still like, you got the axe out grinding away about my preference of thought balloon. You have an amazing life, man, and congrats to you. And I hope it stays that way. Let's see. Brian suddenly old says, "Hi, Pete. What are we not interested in now?" I don't know, man. It's I'm just trying to. I'm not purposefully trying to keep things fresh. It's not like I'm trying to do that. It's more like I'm going kind of in a direction of wanting to have conversations with people on the show that aren't necessarily going to be treading the same ground over and over again. And I'm more just kind of communicating that to you because, well, you guys hopefully watch the show or listen to it or whatever you do. And I want you guys to even maybe help me find people. Maybe it's even you. Maybe, somebody in the chat. Maybe it's even Brian, right here. I don't know. Maybe he's contributing to his community in some way. Maybe he's he got an interesting day job he wants to talk about. Maybe he's got something as a hobby or whatever that he loves and is knowledgeable about, and it has nothing to do with comics. But I know he loves comics. Dude loves comics, and that's the unifier. And it's more about not being like a one note, not just like all we do is talk comics. or the business of comics or the creation of comics or whatever. But, just get some nice, well-rounded people who can have a conversation and have them on the show to talk about these things. And I mean, on a selfish level, I like learning about people. I like learning about their experiences, what they do. Um, I don't just kind of want to be in a position where I feel like I have to authoritatively speak about a topic. I like to be in a position where I have way more questions, way more uncertainties, that this is not something, you know, I'm familiar with, let alone have any kind of authority to speak on. But I'd like to surrender that authority to someone who probably has a far more idea of what what's going on with whatever they're interested in. I think that would be interesting to me, and hopefully maybe interesting to you guys. Just kind of being curious about people and what kind of stuff makes them tick on that level. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I want to kind of integrate that into the show. And I'm going to be just doing a live stream like on Thursdays. That's kind of the way my schedule plays out, where I can do a live stream on a Thursday, have interviews on Thursday. Like next week, I've got Andy Smith on. The week after that, I got Michael Bancroft on. And, we'll see some of these conversation points like I'm talking about. We'll still talk comics a little bit, but you'll see more of these conversation points being brought up that are outside of comics. You'll see me asking more questions that don't pertain to comics. And some people probably don't want to do that. Some people probably want to stick to just talking comics or just promoting their book or whatever, and that's fine. This wouldn't be a good show for them then, because I don't want to predominantly have that same thing. And you also have to think too, right? If you're doing like the virtual digital book tour when you're promoting, you're probably going to have the same conversation with every single person when you're on their show. Go over the campaign. Like I've seen a bunch of these. Go over the campaign. You talk about what the comic is, maybe what inspired you to make it. You have like the bingo card of what the guest is going to be either answering or what they're going to say. So that's not interesting, right? To follow them and watch along. Like I love it when you can watch along and kind of follow someone's little digital book tour, and you learn like new things every time. And I found that that's kind of gone to the wayside a bit. It's like the same talking points, it's the same stuff over and over again, the same kind of story, the same viewpoint about something, whatever it may be. So I want this show to be more like, hey, I know I'm going to learn something new about this person today, unless you know a lot about them already, of course. But maybe you'll learn something new anyway, because I'll get them to hopefully talk about something that they don't often bring up. So that's kind of more the point of what I want this show to be about. And that's kind of always what I wanted it to be about. But I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and, they all were great in some respect, some better than others, I think. But eventually you start treading over the same ground over and over again. And I don't want to do that to you guys or to me. So, yeah, so Thursdays will be an interview show or just me. If I don't have a guest, I'll just talk about something with you guys and kind of just either field questions from the chat or whatever. And then once a month, I do want to have a Feedback Friday. And I would like to have once a month do an Open Mic Wednesday. So, I would like to start doing that in August. So I only got so many Wednesdays left. I only got, 2 Wednesdays and 2 Fridays left. So either the 20th or the 27th will be an open mic show, and the 22nd or the 29th will be a feedback show. And that's the feedback show is kind of more in response. I haven't done a feedback forum show in a while. And that was more in response to me trying to give one tweet critiques. And it went kind of well, kind of not well. Spent too much time on it. That's my fault. And, I found that a bunch of people were more like, well, what do you think of this? Not necessarily like they were serious about wanting to improve on their comic or that anything mattered. Like people just started showing me like whatever they had. You know, there were people that wanted to show me either works in progress, which never goes well with the critique. And the reason I say that it never goes well is because it becomes excuse city. Someone's like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna work on that. Oh yeah, I was gonna do that. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." It's like, okay, well, everything I just said to you, you were gonna do anyway. Like, get this out of my face. Give me something that you consider done, perfect. You're happy with it, or give me something you're done, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. You know, I think this needs something. That's great for getting a critique, but the piece has to be done. It has to be recent. It can't be something years ago. Some people were trying to show me stuff from years ago. That's not going to work out. That's not going to work out because I could critique that and then you go, oh, well, my stuff now doesn't look like that at all. I've done that in the past, with people. And it turns into every single thing turns into an excuse. And I don't want to waste the time on that. I want to work on, if I do give a critique, if I do give feedback, and these were all people that they didn't get unsolicited feedback. Everybody sent in something that they wanted my opinion on. But I did feel like there were eventually a lot of people who either outright were basically not saying anything back when I gave a critique, which was always like, okay, I guess you don't really like the critique I gave. Or it would be like, well, maybe Pete doesn't get this. Maybe Pete doesn't know what I'm doing. He doesn't understand where I'm coming from. And I'm like, all right, well, you don't need to get a critique. That's fine. It's I'm not saying everyone should get a critique about anything, let alone get one from me. But if you really love what you're doing, you're happy with it, whatever it may be, you think it's great, everything about this is just how you want it, then you don't need to get a critique and you shouldn't get a critique. Keep doing whatever it is that you're doing that you think is great, But if you at all want a second opinion, a fresh set of eyes, someone who's seen thousands upon thousands of comic pages and scripts and pieces of art and whatever over nearly 20 years, I'm happy to take a look at that and give you some of my time. But when I do that, I don't expect someone to be like, oh my God, yes, I'll follow everything you say. I don't expect that at all. But I also don't expect pretty much like a blanket dismissal because then it just feels, and that does happen. But then it just feels like, well, I just wasted my time on you. There's people out there that my time could have been better served. So that was the part with that where I feel like, okay, well, maybe if I go back to the feedback forum kind of way of having somebody come on, maybe that'll work out better. Or maybe I'll just get someone upset about something and then they'll grind that axe for years and then mention it randomly on Twitter one day about thought balloons and all of that. That's what we do. All right. AL says, it's your channel, Pete. Do whatever you want. To an extent. It's not just my channel. It's you guys that watch it or listen to it. And especially if you get something out of it. I don't want it to just be either nonsense or the same thing over and over again, a waste of your time, a waste of both of our time, whatever that may be. I don't want it to fall into that category. So, that's why I'm keeping you guys in mind. This isn't just my soapbox or my journal entry of the day or something and, love it or leave it, whatever. Part of it is like that. But the other part of it is also listening to you guys and what your feedback is, what you'd like to see more of, maybe what you'd like to see less of, conversations that, you're, even if it's comic oriented, that's fine too, but stuff that drives your curiosity. I'd like to have more of that. Frederick says, I'd love to come and talk with you, Pete. Well, yeah, well, reach out to me, send me a DM on Twitter. I'm pretty sure we follow each other, and let me know what you want to talk about and we can go from there. Cole says, talking about my day job usually makes people sad. Ooh, I wonder what that is. Sheldon says, if I were Pete, I would have an opening scene riding a motorcycle with my hair waving, Lorenzo Lamas style, and heavy metal music playing. Like the opening of Renegade. That's a good show. Stephen J. Cannell, though, man. That dude knew how to conceive great shows. AL says, I'm boring, so I won't be coming on. That's fine. That's fine. Dr. Crow says, I did magic before I started this comic thing. Well, that's kind of interesting, man. You know, that'd be kind of cool to have you on, you know? Let me know. Crenshaw says, I'd like to grab the attention of folks not in this space and get them into the comics out here. That's kind of also where I'm coming from with this. And it's not like that's directly why I want to do this. I think that might be maybe a result of it, but that's not the purpose necessarily of why I'm doing it. But yeah, I think that mentality is good, you know, and I think it's good also to show people, because I love it. Every time I see, you know, I get a kick out of it anytime I stupidly assume, no matter how often it happens, no matter how obviously dumb it is to think this way. Let's say it's I don't know, let's say it's a hockey player. And you find out that hockey player loves comic books or loves something that you didn't think they would, you know? And you love that thing too. And I go, wow, that's kind of cool, because I really love hockey. And I didn't know that dude felt that way about that stuff, you know? And also, you know, conversely, you could find out something about them where you're like, I didn't know that person like that. I don't know about them anymore. You know, and that happens more often than not in this day and age. But there's not too much unless someone's like, you know what I like doing? I like just being a total a-hole. I'd be like, I don't know if I'm really, this guy. I don't know if he's my kind of guy. But most people are not that way, you know? But I like that. I like that aspect of you discover things about people that for whatever reason you had some kind of preconceived notion about what they must be like. And then when you find out, like, oh, they like this stuff, they do that stuff, you know, I kind of do that too, or whatever, you know, I kind of like that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me as I get older. Chris Six says, that's cool, Pete. The Dina Martin interview was cool. Yeah, she was a blast to talk to. She was great. Let's see. Onion Field says, what do you think about transmedia concerning comics? Stories that unfold across multiple media platforms and formats, with each platform offering a unique contribution to the overall experience. That's not too bad. I mean, I think they've kind of tried to do things like that over the years to varying degrees. I don't know if it was necessarily like, I like it when it's kind of a supplemental, like an additional kind of bonus, but I don't like it when it's like a mandatory thing. I feel like then you start actually undercutting the medium of whatever it is you're trying to use to tell your story. You know, so for instance, like if you make a comic and the next thing is the next sequence of the story plays out on a TV show, and then the next sequence of the story after that plays out on a I was going to say a record or a cassette. Why not? I'll stick with it. An audio drama of some sort, you know. And then the next thing of it plays out on a motion comic. And then the next thing of it plays out. I feel like that becomes exhausting. And that kind of starts undercutting the experience of what you actually are probably trying to achieve. Now, if it's a bonus, you know, so here's an additional thing of how to tell a story, or here is an adaptation of how to tell the story. I think that's kind of cool. But again, that's just me personally, you know. Maybe some people like that, maybe some don't. But me personally, I don't like tracking down. Even within comics, it annoyed the hell out of me when you'd have to when you have a big crossover event or whatever, and you'd have to track everything down, and you got to buy books that you're like, I don't buy that book ever, but I got to buy it because it's in the storyline, and you begrudgingly read it and most of the time you really wish you didn't, because it really didn't do a whole hell of a lot to add to the story. I always hated that. So, and that's within comics. So I can't imagine, like, okay, well, now I gotta download this, watch that, do this. That feels like a bit much. But again, that's just me. That's just me. Gerald says, I don't know if I have something to offer in terms of having a federal job and being older than a lot of creators and financially set and not worrying about that in terms of making comics and art. You don't know if you have. Well, I mean, I think everybody's got something to offer. It just depends, I guess, if you've got an angle of how you think it pertains to being something that you would like to share with others. Some people don't want to this kind of topic of like getting a little more personal. Some people don't want to have that kind of discussion. Some people don't do anything in their community. That's fine too. I'm not saying that you should or you shouldn't, but maybe some people do. Maybe some people, like, they run, I don't know, a charity, or maybe some people have some kind of awesome day job that gives back in some way, or maybe some people have something that they do with their life, some kind of hobby, some kind of anything else that's outside of comics that really means something to them, and they have a great story behind all of that. I think everyone is a storyteller in some respect. It's just, you got to figure out, well, what's your story? So everyone's got a story to tell. Dr. Crow says YouTube is bipolar about if it wants streaming or not. Yeah, I know, right? They can't make up their mind. Santos says, hey, Pete, enjoy the streams and your insights on the industry. I'm only a passive comic fan, but if you want to talk ancient history, let me know. Oh, well, I'd love to talk ancient history. Can you reach out to me? I'm going to be talking some of that with Michael Bancroft again, because he's really into like all of that sort of stuff. And as am I. So, if you want to reach out, feel free to reach out, man. I see you got the little Easter Island head on there. That's cool. Hey, look at that. They actually show the emojis on Restream, but they don't do that on StreamYard. That's a thumbs up for Restream right there. Citizen Ronan says, when you're over 40, getting started can be tough. Yeah, that's for sure. Finishing things, too, can be even tougher. Headless says, I'm excited for the newsprint edition of Andy Smith's Lilith. It looks great, and it's really cool to be able to support Andy and your printing services at the same time. Yeah, I'm really excited to see about getting that going, and I hope that is doing well, and I'll talk more about that with him next week. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Alpha Red, what's up, James? Good to see you. Let's see, and no worries, I got that. You put Andy there. It's a keyboard, no accounting for the keyboard. Dr. Mask is much more interesting to get to know the creator and not just what their latest project is. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm coming from too. I would like to get to know the creator more than just what they're creating. The creation is nice, but I find that when you get to know the creator more, you really discover what has informed their creation. Or sometimes you wonder, well, why did you create that? And then that can kind of send you down a different path. So, yeah. Well, glad to hear that you'd kind of be into that. Radio Stories Now, what's up? Good to see you. We got Jameson here, says, I think Pete wants to become a late night TV host. Not necessarily. I just want to have conversations that are for the hour that I have them, that aren't just the same topic being retread over and over again. And also late night TV hosts. Have you seen any late night TV hosts yet? They're horrible. Horrible. So this is definitely, I don't see any late night TV hosts that are actually trying to have a genuine conversation with anyone that they have on their show. I see a lot of late night TV hosts that have danced around being unbelievably obnoxious over the past couple of years and thinking that they are far more clever than they actually are. But I don't care to become a late night TV host. I just care to have conversations with people. You know, I don't think that's too bad. Let's see. Citizen says thought balloons, you monster. And yeah, Metatron, that was a thing. Gerald says, I think a discussion about what comics influenced us. I'd love to be a part of that, as I started reading comics in '78 with Mr. Miracle 25 and Micronauts 1. Yeah, well, you know, that's something cool to talk about as well. Crenshaw says, I tried to switch it up a half hour to shill, then I'd ask random questions or review songs suggested by people on X. I just need to come up with fun, interesting show segments. Well, you know, that's the thing for everyone. I think everyone finds their path or whatever they want to do, and then they try to go about it as best as they can. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. So yeah, so that's kind of the big channel update. I want to have like little smaller videos too, pre-recorded stuff just sprinkled throughout the week, you know, either something that pops into my head, because a lot of the time I'm like, maybe I should just talk about that and save that for a live stream, and half the time I forget the damn thing. So I should have just made a quick little video being like, hey, you know, this popped into my head, this is what I'm thinking about right now, what do you guys think about this? You have any thoughts on that? Let me know. You know, so I'm thinking of doing more videos like that, maybe kind of show you guys too some of the process of some of the stuff that I do, to as much of it as I could possibly show. That would be not necessarily too time consuming to do so, but just kind of more keeping it a bit loose with some stuff. That's all. Let's see. We got Dr. Matt saying it's an opinion. Everyone has one. There you go. Dr. Crow says he must have given it a lot of thought. Yeah, the thought balloon guy must have given it a lot of thought. I think so. Let's see. Mono, what's up? Says good evening, chat. Good evening to you. Killer Kovacs says a penny for your thought balloon. Alpha Red says I like thought balloons, but I don't use them. Justin says you are living rent free in his thought balloons. I like that. That's a good one, Justin. Let's see. Headless says you probably have a hot take on onomatopoeia in comics too. Oh, heaven forbid. Let's see. Oh, Radio Story's talking to Crenshaw. Alpha Red says, if you want to talk insurance sales, I'm your guy. Oh, look at that. Insurance salesman here, huh? You got Ned Ryerson in the chat. AL says, I only have teacher stories. Most are depressing. Oh, boy. Well, it is what it is. Let's see. Loud Torch is comic book and unrelated topics radio, which is kind of what it's always been. Citizen Ronan says Andy did stand up. That would be interesting to hear about. Oh yeah, I'll talk to him about that. Thank you for giving me that tip. Let's see. We got Rachel says want to talk about interstellar comets. So far there has only been, I guess that 3 identified. Jake Blue says too many thin-skinned people as well. Well, that's, you know, that's kind of the thing. That's kind of it's a bit tough because, you know, I can't ever really get a good grasp on what someone is like in terms of how they react or interact online. Because someone could turn around and go, you know, hey, Pete's pissed at the thin-skinned people. Look at how thin-skinned he is. And I'd say, yeah, okay, I could see that. You know, it's like that's how you can interpret things, you know. And if you want to, like, everyone's a psychologist on social media. You know, we're all kind of diagnosing each other with our various neuroses. So when someone kind of comes along, though, I don't necessarily care if they're going to be thin-skinned as much as they're going to waste my time. So if you're going to be thin-skinned, kicking and screaming, and you're going to be pissy at me, I'm like, you know, that's fine. That's you, whatever. Just don't waste my time with it. You know, I'm not, it's not like I'm going to them and they posted some art and then they, you know, I tore it up and said, wow, this is really bad. When you're actually going to someone, yeah, you give me some feedback on this. Give me a critique. I would never ask for a critique on a piece that I was 100% confident in and I love the way it came out. I would always ask when I would have some kind of a doubt as to how did this come out, you know. Now, we're not in a classroom setting, so no one is forced to just put their stuff on the wall and you give a critique and everyone goes around the room or anything like that. But there's a lot of creators out there that obviously really have never received honest, knowledgeable feedback about what they're doing. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at, where I want to help people out who are serious, or at least more serious than the average comic creator hobbyist. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to use that as like a pejorative or anything. I'm not trying to put people down if it's just like it's a hobby to create your comic. That's fine. I think a lot of indie creators, it's kind of hobby level of time and commitment, because they have so many other things going on. Again, that's kind of why I like to have that conversation with a lot of creators that maybe they do have a lot going on and they like to talk about that. But the thing is that if people are more serious in terms of not necessarily like, oh, they want to make a living on this, or this is something that they want to view themselves as a professional or whatever it may be, because those things kind of come and go with a lot of different people's perspectives on what that means. But more like someone's really serious in terms of they want to make the best possible thing that they can make, and that's why I would give any kind of feedback to someone, is to help them to be the best creator that they could be, not necessarily better than someone else, because that again is a conversation that's not what feedback and critiques and things like that are for. But it's about being the best version of yourself given what you know. And maybe there's spots that you're lacking. There's certainly spots where I'm always finding myself lacking, because I'll look back and I'll go and see something I made years ago and go, wow, that was horrible. And I remember at the time thinking that it wasn't. But it's because I've kept pushing myself to find ways to improve on the things that I find myself lacking, and there's even things now where I'm like, yeah, I need to improve on this and that and the other thing, whether it's art, the creative aspect of whatever, or the business side. There's always something. But if someone is already at where they feel they want to be, that's the last person I want to have on a feedback show, or that I want to critique their art, because it's going to be a waste of time. And whether or not they're thin-skinned, that's a whole other situation. Most people, I find, it's a combo of the thin skin, but it's more of like the stubbornness. And then it always just turns into, well, all the critiques are opinions and they're subjective. And it's like, well, yeah, you're right. You're right. But if that truly is how you feel, then there's no point in you receiving a critique. Because if you are knowledgeable enough to understand that, yeah, what this person is saying really does not apply to what I'm trying to do here, you would just be like, okay, thanks, thanks for your time. And you would just move on. Or you would have the wherewithal to, when you ask for the critique, say, I'm struggling with this, that, and the other thing. I'm struggling with the lettering. I'm struggling with the writing. I'm struggling with the art. Whatever it is, or should have at least some kind of understanding of where your limitations are. Because, you've got eyes. Everyone's got eyes. You guys can see what looks good to you and what doesn't from what other people do. So look at your own stuff in that way and go, yeah, this doesn't really look like the way I would want it to look. What can I do to make this look better? And not everyone is at that state of mind or at that point in life yet where they've reached that. So that's again why I say that getting a critique really isn't for everyone. Even if everyone could maybe improve from a good critique, but it could turn into like a slippery slope of condescension. And I don't want that to happen either. Because anytime I give feedback to someone's art and the stuff that they put time and effort into, no matter what it is, I'm aware that they love what they're doing, and that's why they're doing it. And I only say things to try to help them see maybe where it's currently lacking a bit and where they could shore those things up. Very very often, a lot of the time, I'll see people that want to critique, and they're nowhere near that level yet. So they need to learn fundamentals. Like critiques are great for people who have, I mean, let me put it this way. If you're just starting out drawing, if you're just starting off doing this stuff, you still need to learn a lot. You still need to learn a lot. You should not be in a state of mind yet where you feel like you need um, someone else's opinion to come in, because you are still kind of like this thing that needs to be finished in and of itself. You know, you still have a lot where you have to mold yourself and figure out what you like and what you don't like. You're still kind of experimenting with what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You know, so if you're really someone who, you know, you're grasping at the fundamentals and the basics, if I give you a critique, it's going to be not only difficult for me to give you one without it sounding like you really need to start from square one. um, it's going to come across kind of, I think, like a dream killer sort of a thing. You know, so I kind of try with those people to be like, you know, work on your basics, work on anatomy, work on proportion, work on perspective. You know, it's all this kind of very generalized stuff, but that's because that's where they're at. I'd much rather give critiques to people that are just like a couple of steps away. You know, they just need to maybe they've seen something too many times. You know, it's happened to me where I've seen this piece 1,000 times, and then someone comes in and is like, "Oh yeah, that kind of looks wonky." You know, it's like, oh, yeah, it does. That does look wonky, but it's because you've seen it so often. You know, you can't see past it anymore, and that's the level of critique that I like to give to people, as opposed to the other step where you either have to end up becoming like a mentor to the person, which I'm not going to be putting myself in that position because I just don't honestly have the time for it, or you just have to send them down the path of saying, look, you got a lot of work to do, be patient with yourself and just treat it like that. You know, learn as much as you can, uh, read a lot if you want to be a good writer, draw a lot, study the art, study the comics, study all the stuff and analyze the stuff that you think is incredible. But don't do it in a comparative way. Don't go, you know, oh, this artist is so great, you know, I'll never be as good as them. But no, learn what are they doing. You know, you got to develop that confidence, the confidence in the line, especially when you're an artist. There's a lot of a tendency when you're starting out, your line's a bit shaky, your line isn't as confident, and it's because you haven't even developed the manual dexterity yet, the muscle memory to actually pull off a confident line. You know, and the same thing happens the more that you read, the more that you kind of develop and hone in on your craft as a writer, the easier that gets too. But when you're at a point where you're just starting off, if you start asking for critiques and feedback and everything like that, that usually tends to do more harm than good. That's what I've seen from a lot of people. So that's just kind of my thought on it. Citizen says, Pete doesn't understand my genius. I mean, man, that could be true. That could be true. Elka of Antioch, what's up? Good to see you. Beampad is here too. How's it going, Beampad? Cole King says, unrelated, but my daughter is angry at you for stealing my hat. She's only 1.5 and apparently doesn't understand how two of the same hat can exist. Hey, you know, I'm sorry. I'll give him back his hat as soon as I'm done with the video. You know, that's how kind your dad is that he let me borrow this hat for this video. I mean, you got a really kind dad. Crenshaw says, I've enjoyed the cryptid and UFO talks you've had. Thank you, Crenshaw. Jefferson says, I love your shows, Pete. When I get a new computer, I'd be interested to chat with you virtually sometime. I'd be interested too, man. That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. Let's see. Citizen says, unless it's something weird, I don't want to know if they're into something weird. I guess we'll have to we'll know it when we see it. PB says, as an outsider, I see a lot of echo chambers. People attack and insult creators and their fans who they don't like. It's very off-putting. I prefer a guy uh, who talks about what he does like. Thank you, sir. Well, I understand that too. And I also have a tendency to get down the tribalistic path of what I like, what I'm ingrained in, but I always try to keep like one foot, at least partially, even if it's a toe, into the side of, yeah, but at the end of the day, I get it, but that doesn't really have anything to do with what I'm doing. So as long as someone isn't kind of telling me how to think about something or feel about something, and they're just sharing their perspective and allowing me to arrive at my own conclusion on it, I don't mind any of that. And I think most of us are like that. I think a lot of us are like that, where you just don't want to be told what to think or feel about something. But you don't mind if someone else does, as long as obviously, they're not telling you how to feel and think. So that's kind of where I'm at, and a lot of the time when I talk about stuff, I'm not saying that people need to feel this way or they're wrong or I don't like you or whatever it may be, whatever the topic may be. But it's more just like me expressing that's how I feel or whatever it is about something. I mean, we all change our minds about various things from time to time, depending on what kind of evidence gets shown or what is revealed to be whatever it may be. So, yeah, I don't really even know what I'm trying to get at here other than just saying that I'm not going to try to sway you one extreme or the other. I'm just here. I'm just here to have a conversation. That's kind of what it is. Oblation says, just took a break from work and saw you were streaming. Sweet. What's up, everyone? Hey, what's up, Oblation? Hope you're doing good. Let's see here. So something else too is that I'm essentially going to be, and I've already kind of started this, started a couple months ago. I'm going to be taking on more editing jobs for comics. So if people are interested in having me on as an editor, whether it's a script editor for your writing or like an art director kind of thing, where I'm an art editor for your book. So if I do the script stuff, I don't do the art stuff. If I do the art stuff, I won't touch your script, and you could hire me to do both. And if you hire me to do both, you get a discount on the page rate. So I'm already signed on for a couple people's books. I don't know if I can express that just yet. I don't want to say anything just yet I never like saying anything until I get the okay from someone to let me know it's okay to say something. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be great because that's the reason I started off making comics, was to help people make comics. That's the reason I started Alterna, was to do that, And I think the industry, especially the industry, is really changing to the point that publishers are kind of becoming, I hate to say it, less and less useful. So the way that things are going, I think the other avenues are more useful in terms of you need someone solid that could really help you out to make the best comic possible and to help advise you along the path, and that's kind of what I'd be there for. So if anyone's interested, reach out, let me know. Maybe we can get together and I could help you on your comic. But I'm booking up a bunch of different projects right now and different time slots for those projects. And I don't want to overbook because I have my other stuff to do too, between printing and making my own comics and whatnot. But I do want to be a part of the solution of making good comics, because I think for the past couple of years, to be perfectly honest, I think we've reached critical mass in terms of the amount of comics that are out there, whether it's in the mainstream distribution side or the indie side or whatever, because the playing field has been so leveled, it's practically collapsed. Just about anybody could put a comic out and it doesn't matter how good it is or how bad it is or whatever. And for better or worse, that's the way it is. I don't see that reversing anytime soon. So we have more comics being made now than ever before, less places to sell them at than ever before, and the glut is, I think, crushing at times for a lot of people, because the majority of comics have always been kind of either so-so or bad. Like, I'd have to say, let's say, I don't know, in the 80s, you get 50 comics a month being put out there. Let's say 5 of them were great and 30 of them were okay, and then 15 of them were pretty bad, and they would eventually be canceled. Well, now that number is like times 20. So even though proportionately that stuff has gone kind of the same, although I don't know about a lot of stuff now that can be considered great, there's a whole hell of a lot more of like the mediocre and the very bad. And I feel like that problem is spiraling out and getting worse and worse. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just what I'm seeing. But even when I was looking the other day at the Lunar Distribution website, just looking at the comics that they distribute and looking at just even the covers and some of the preview pages they have for some of these comics, and I'm looking at them like I'm from a different planet, man. Some of this stuff that's being put out by really big name publishers too. And I just look at it and go, what on earth has happened to the comics industry? It's just an overwhelming glut of crap. There's just so much crap. And even at Alterna, I'd say it's relatively the same. Like if you did like the percentages, you're talking about maybe like 10% of the stuff we ever published was pretty great. And the majority, I'd say like maybe 70, 60% was okay. And then the last bit of that, 30% or so was pretty bad. Yeah, I could say that. I can point out a bunch, and I'm talking the entirety of the 19-year history of Alterna. And I'm looking now, though, at the Lunar Distribution site, which is now, I guess, one of the biggest comics distribution companies there is. And there's just so much. It's not them, obviously. It's not a knock on Lunar. This is a knock on just kind of where comics are at. And I'm looking at just like the covers and the preview pages, and they're just so bad. They're just so bad. I just don't get it. I don't get what happened. I don't get where this came about, when it came about. I know it came about over a course of, let's face it, like 25 or to 30 or so years of a time period, because comics have kind of been on this trajectory largely since like the mid 90s. And it's not like there's not good stuff out there. There's definitely some stuff that's good out there. But it feels like there's some publishers that, like, do you guys know how to say no? Do you guys know how to say, yeah, this could really be better. You need some time to improve here. Maybe, it's not for us. Publishers that I used to hold in such high esteem, and I'm not going to put them on blast. I'm not going to say names. Sorry. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, what the hell happened? I'm speechless. I don't know what has gone on to create such a massive change in the vast majority of what gets published, to the point that, and I'm not usually this kind of guy, but to the point that I'm looking at it and I'm like, these guys should not be published with these publishers. This is strange. This sets a weird precedent. And I kind of saw a lot of this happen over the years when I would get submissions. That's why I stopped accepting a lot of submissions about 2 years ago, was because the bigger companies do set a bar for, this is what we strive for. This is what the industry wants. These are the stories to tell. This is what a comic looks like now. And that largely is not what I would want to put out into the world. These are stories where, you know, you get like three balloons on a page in terms of reading the story if you're lucky. So you're done with the comic in like 2 to 3 minutes. The art looks like there's no direction whatsoever in terms of someone saying anything about it in terms of quality and in terms of how to properly tell a story effectively and in an exciting way. And situations and plots where you just read that and go, what the hell did I just read? What is even happening here? You know, instead of something that's being put out that it's like, oh, this is being put out because this means something. There's some kind of meaning behind this. There's some kind of purpose behind this. This isn't just like crap to fill up in a long box somewhere and then sit there for forever and ever. And eventually the paper that it's printed on is worth more than what the contents are. And yet there's an overwhelming glut in what's being made right now. And I can't for the life of me understand it because, again, we have less spaces to sell comics than ever before. And yet there are more comics being made now than ever. It is lunacy to me. I can't wrap my head around it. And I don't know, maybe somebody can explain it to me and make my small mind understand it. But I feel like, what is going on? What is going on? So it is what it is. Tippy Tail says, hey, Pete, a lot of creators keep talking about newsprint comics. Have any contacted you about it? I mean, the people who backed the campaign, but only one person so far has actually submitted their files correctly. I had 4 overall that have submitted their files. Nobody else has submitted any files yet for any kind of printing or print run or sampler book or anything like that. And I don't really expect it. I'm honestly a little shocked. I thought I would have got some more right off the bat. I knew a bunch of people were purchasing vouchers or samplers or whatever for like down the line, which is fine too, because the vouchers don't expire. The sampler perk doesn't expire. They can fulfill that with me if they want in 2 years, 3 years or whatever. But I thought I would have had a few more. But out of the 4 people, one person ended up submitting their files correctly after making a couple of revisions. One person completely up and quit wanting to do it, which was unfortunate and strange. And then another person kept sending the files wrong over and over and over again and wasn't making any of the adjustments I was telling them they need to make so this print's fine. And I mean very basic adjustments, like the size of the page. They just kept sending me the wrong page size over and over and saying, yeah, no, it's fine. And I'm saying, it's not fine. This is the wrong page size. It's not going to print right. And then the 4th person, I'm still waiting on them to see if they can revise their files. Because again, they had similar issues with page size and format, and people aren't really, I guess, using newsprintcomics.com. Use that as a checklist. Use that as a checklist of the things to determine on how to make those files correct. There's only like 10 different things you got to do. It's not really that intensive. And there's a template on there too for both the mini size and the full size. And I don't know if people are using that or not to make sure it lines up and everything is in alignment accurately to print accurately. But it's there. Take advantage of it. Use it. Because if the files come to me and they're not in printable shape, I have to bounce them back to you and say, you got to fix this, and this. I'm not going to print files knowing full well that it's going to come out like garbage. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But the one person who did get their sampler book, an individual by the name of Larry Rains, he had posted it on, he's got a comic called Mercury Mouse, and he's got he's on Twitter, and I had retweeted it because he got his sampler book and he really loves the way it came out. So that's good to see. But yeah, one person so far. He's the only one to send in the files correctly. Let's see. PB says people confuse personal preference for criticism. They aren't the same. If you like something, doesn't make it good. If you don't like something, that doesn't make it bad. They're just opinions. Absolutely. Let's see. Citizen Ronan says, sounds like music. More music being produced than ever before, and 99% of it is garbage. Yeah, it's kind of that way across the board with everything, again, because the playing field has been so leveled, and the barrier to entry has been drastically lowered, which is great. Absolutely great. But at the same time, it's not making people kind of stop and think and know I got a lot to learn before I enter this playing field. Everyone's going like imagine if you could just go play pro in a sport, right? You just can go, just join, sit on the bench all of a sudden, and you're like, hey, what's up? And the veteran player is like, who the hell's this guy? And then you get on there. I love hockey, so I'll use hockey. You get out on the ice and you get decked and you get leveled because this is your first time putting on the skates and you don't know how to skate and you don't know how to do anything else. And you get obliterated. Well, chances are you come back to the bench if you can make it. And you're not feeling too good about what just happened. And that's what's happening in terms of that playing field being so leveled, is that people are coming back to the bench hobbled, scarred for life, tore up inside and out, and they don't know if they want to do this anymore. And sometimes those people get better and better. They have a great attitude and they shake it off and they keep trying to get better. Very few of those people exist, though. Very few. Most people, they get jaded by it. They get resentful. They sometimes will lash out. They'll tear others down before they even admit, yeah, I wasn't ready and I got a lot of work to do. And that's kind of the thing that's occurring in comics at large right now. Maybe it's occurring in other creative fields as well. But sometimes these barriers of entry, when it comes to merit, when it comes to have you earned that yet, when it comes to are you ready for that yet, being honest with yourself about these things, sometimes that's a good thing. Oftentimes it's a good thing. And it feels like there's a lot, or none of it, I should say, happening right now in comics, is that there isn't really that kind of person who can come along and at least guide you to be like, hey, look, you got a lot to work on. That's great, because everyone does. Everyone has a lot to work on, and everyone starts at the bottom. But you don't want to rush into this. You want to learn as much as you can. You want to give a good couple of years to that. Running into the whole, and I've had that happen. I've had people, when I was doing a lot of submissions, I've rejected something like 15,000 submissions over the years. I've had a bunch of people literally within the submission say that this is the first thing that they've ever drawn. This is the first thing I've ever, not the first comic they've ever made, but the first thing they ever drew. Why would you submit that? Why would you submit that to a publisher? You're not ready yet to submit that to a publisher. You're not ready to get published yet. Take the time to learn. Take the time to at least be at a competent level where I can give you feedback that'll help you out. If you come in there with a really half-assed submission, you're generally not going to get a response back from most people, because they're not even going to know, are you trolling them or something? And there's been people who've done that to me over the years, but there's a lot of people who don't. They're not trolling. They're being legitimately serious, where, they're submitting it as a comic. And I'm like, what about this do you think is ready to be published? You have so much work you need to do that I don't even know where to start, other than to tell you that you have a lot to learn, and that's where you need to be right now. You need to learn. And there's nothing wrong with you learning, but there's a lot wrong with the attitude that you're kind of displaying, where you think you're ready to be published right now. And then there's this whole other level of people who, and again, the playing field has been leveled. So if you do feel like you are ready to be published and you want to publish yourself, you can do that. and let the audience decide. That's great. That's cool. But what I'm talking about largely is the people who then go to a publisher and the publisher rubber stamps it and they're like, yeah, this is great. And it's obviously not. It's obviously not great. It's obviously not doing well. About, I'd say, roughly 70 to 75% of the indie comics that ever got put into the marketplace when they were keeping track of sales, they weren't even making their budget back to make that book. So people were being put in situations to fail. And the publisher or whoever was approving of these situations, obviously was okay with that and putting like all of this stuff out there over and over again that wasn't going to do well. I saw it at Alterna. There were books that I'm like, okay, you're on the third or fourth issue now, you're selling like 80% less than that number one was. We got to have a serious talk here. And people would be upset about me with that, and it's why? Why are you upset about that? Can't you tell it's not doing well? And you're not open to changing things up within either the book or the promotional habits to change that trajectory. So it's going to stay the way it is or get worse. And for some reason, people they get really upset by that instead of viewing it as like, yeah, this really isn't working out. But there's so many books out there. I'd see them. They're like on issue 20 or whatever it is. And I'm like, they're not even selling 1,000 copies. They're not even making the money back whatsoever to even put that book to print. What's going on? Why are they continually getting published and put out there? Again, that person could easily just go and self-publish. That's fine. It's a weird time right now in the marketplace. And it's weird to see when it's not just on the indie level, because that's always been around, the indie level of like, you go and self-publish and that's the way it is. And, sink or swim kind of thing. But people who you would think that because it all trickles down, like that perspective trickles down into the indie mentality. Because you look at the piece of crap that the big name publisher is putting out and you go, hey, if they could put out that piece of crap, I could put out my piece of crap too. And I can't even say I blame them for having that thought because obviously they're correct. Doesn't make it better. Doesn't make it good. Doesn't mean that should be that way. But that's kind of where we're at. Let's see. Gerald says, I'd love for you to have Ben Dunn on for a discussion. I like his very common sense approach to creating, publishing comics and the industry with his company, Antarctic Press. I mean, I wouldn't mind having Ben on, but at the same time, I kind of would also. Only because, I mean, in the past, like he's... I don't even know if I want to get into it. Okay, so I don't like how he handled the whole thing with Mark Waid and Richard Meyer. And because of the way that he handled that, I got a lot of shit for it because people thought that I was Antarctic Press. Okay. So I don't like that, number one, even though, he couldn't help the result of people being stupid and thinking that Alterna was Antarctic. He should have handled that better. He should have had some spine with that situation and the way that played out. And then I really don't like how when Alterna went with newsprint, he sends me an email wanting to know who I'm using because he wants to use them too. And I said, that's not up for grabs. I'm not saying anything like that. And he was kind of pissy about that. Then I also don't like that he put out a video some months ago or whatever, talking about how like newsprint isn't viable and newsprint can't be done and kind of shitting all over newsprint being done. And someone even within the comments was like, you should talk to, like I was mentioned a lot in the comments of that video. And he said that he tried to talk to me and I don't want to talk to him. No, Ben, you didn't try to talk to me. You tried to take my knowledge of all the hours of research I did to find out who I was using for a printer. You just wanted that right off the bat. Just cause. And I thought that was kind of messed up to just be like, yeah, just give me who you who you use. That's not usually how things work out, where you just go like, yeah, just I don't know who the hell you are. We don't ever talk. We've never talked before. Can you just tell me, your secrets? I thought that was kind of weird. So I know Ben's been around for a long time or whatever, which also is like, well, you've been around for so long, you got to know who to look for. You got to know. You should already be doing the newsprint stuff before me. Um, I don't like how he handled a lot of different situations. I don't like how he handled that situation with me. I don't like how he made it out like he tried to have a conversation with me and I just didn't want to have one with him. So I don't know if that conversation's ever going to happen with him. Probably not. But yeah, that's one of those situations where I'm like, I don't really know. There's a duplicity about him that I'm not really quite certain about. Andy says the majority of anything in any industry, especially unregulated like comics, is crap. Yeah. And I mean, most of the comics that have ever been made have been pretty bad, if you really look at it. But now it feels almost like exponential because it's gone up proportionately. So if like 100 comics were made 30 years ago on a monthly basis, now we have like 400 to 500 a month that are made, and the proportion has gone up. So most of them, it's going to feel like you're wading through a sea of crap, and feces from every species. That kind of gets pretty rough. Let's see. Andy says nothing's ever good enough for Pete. Yeah, nothing's ever good enough for me, Andy. Yeah, I know you don't like me, Andy. It's okay. Thanks for watching, though. Andy's still upset because I had rejected a submission of his a while ago, and I wouldn't critique his years old submission or whatever it was that he put on Twitter too. Yeah, send me something from years ago. That's a really valid thing for me to critique. Comics for Life says companies seem to be catering to collectors, so all that matters are those variant covers. Yeah, the variant covers are really keeping a lot of things afloat. That's for sure. Cole says indie comics can really be a huge box, so even the most mild critique can hit someone hard. Absolutely. He says, it can be a hug box. Yeah, a hug box. It's a huge box of hugs. Dr. Crow Carnival says the hamburger helper can only work when the hamburger realizes it needs help. I saw that somewhere. Did you post that, or someone else posted that? I saw it somewhere. Let's see. Tippy Tail says, keep in mind, Peter, you are an expert on newsprint printing. Your customers may be boomers. If they're boomers, they'd probably know more about newsprint printing than me. Comics for Life says, how many books should be sold to be considered profitable for an indie creator? That depends on the creator, to be perfectly honest. Let's see. Corey says, wow. Oh, about the Antarctic thing. Yeah. Says, well, both your names start with A, so of course you're the same guy. Yeah, obviously. Obviously. We're both Asian, whatever. And then we both have the same, the A for a company. Tippy Tail says, newsprint is cool. It works well with budget comics. Yeah, I think so too. Let's see. Oh, Andy says, Pete never has anything positive to say about anyone. Oh, well, that's too bad, Andy, that you feel that way, because I've said massive amounts of positive things about a lot of people. I don't really have positive things, though, to say about people like maybe yourself, who just kind of come in to shit on me. And honestly, Andy, I don't know you well enough to properly shit on you. And you don't really know me well enough to properly shit on me. I just hope that you find a lot of success with your comic to the point that you can probably stop grinding that axe for me. And instead, maybe chop down a tree and get that aggression out and go back to being successful then. Do that. Give that a try. I don't know why on earth you would come into someone's channel or their chat to just be like, they're such a meanie. Okay. I guess that makes you feel better. But it's kind of sad that it does. So, Andy, I do hope that you have a lot of success with your comic, in all seriousness. And I really hope that whatever it is that you think you need to improve on, that you do. I don't know why you would want my critique or feedback when you obviously don't really respect what I have to say. So that kind of confuses and puzzles me. And I also don't know, again, why you'd want to watch my show if I'm just a mean old miser. So, anyway, best to you, Andy. Let's see. Opponent of Stupidity says, Pete, I would love to see you have a conversation with Vox Day, who really has been an important figure in recent indie comic publishing. I guess. Let's see. Citizen says, well, you did steal a hat, though. I did. I did steal Cole's hat virtually through the screen and then put it on my head. But, Cole was kind enough to let me have his hat for just tonight. So thank you, Cole. All right. So, yeah, the last thing I wanted to touch upon was the Alternaween book. So let's see here. We got Alternaween, which is, if you are not aware of what Alternaween is about, we're doing it differently this year. We got Trick or Treat comics bundles. If you guys want to pick up a bundle, you can do so. Let me put that link right here. There it is. Let me see. How do we get that shared properly? Is it like, that's not so bad. That's pretty good. All right, so we got it as a 10 comics bundle this year. You get 10 random comics. They're separated by age group. So you get the 10 comics for $5. We got separated here by 6+, 12+, and 17+. So if you just want ones that are appropriate for little kids and up, you get the 6+. If you get ones that you want for like teenagers, that's 12+. If you get one that you just kind of want for 17+, which I've come to accept over the years that the people who get the 17+ books probably aren't using those as trick or treats and probably shouldn't use those as trick or treats. And you're probably just getting comics at a discount or using them as gifts or whatever. But that's fine. We're offering that up there too. Again, these are a 10 comics bundle. It's random. So the assortment of books is random. The condition of books is random, but they're all in decent enough shape. And that's just 50 cents a comic. We've only got about, I think in totality, around 35 bundles left. So make sure you pick yours up. We're gonna have these available until October 1st or until supplies run out. So supplies will probably run out before October 1st, if I have to be brutally honest. But you will be guaranteed to receive these by October 20th, if not far before that. And if you get 5 bundles or more, you get a free tote bag. So you can go pick those up whenever you want, if you want, at alternacomics.com, or you can use that link that's right there. There you go. And that's kind of the extent of all of that. Okay. So that's about it for tonight. Again, I'm going to be doing the show on Thursdays for the most part, and then we'll see about one day a month with the feedback forum, with the feedback Friday, and then one day a month with open mic Wednesday. And hopefully, whoever's out there that you hate my guts, what can I tell you? I'm still going to be here for as long as I'm here, and I hope you find something better to do with your time. But I still wish you success. I'm weird like that. I want to see people so successful. Everybody so successful, especially if you're a comic creator. I don't care if you hate me or not. Like, Ben Dunn, if you love Antarctic Press, purchase all those books. There's all these different creators that are over there. I've had them even on this show. Bill Williams was great, and he's on Antarctic Press. And it's not even like I have some animosity for Ben. It's one of these things where I'm just like unsure of where he's coming from. So seems like a strange place to have a conversation with the guy when I can't really make heads or tails of him. But there's so many different people that have been on the show. This is almost episode 300. We're one away. And yet, for some reason, people think I have nothing nice to say about anybody. All right. Well, I got a lot of nice things to say about you guys in the chat. Thank you guys so much. You guys are always great. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your support. And the Cigar Gangster says, this is the feistiest live stream I have ever seen on the Alterna channel. Well, it's not the Alterna channel. Can you believe it? It's comic book radio channel. So, but it's definitely not the feistiest. That's for sure. There's been feistier. That's a word, right? Feistier. I don't know. Tippy Tail says, sorry, Pete, we get under 10 kids for Halloween nowadays. You know? Oh, well, it is what it is. Let's see. Andy says, I don't hate you, Pete. I just like messing around. Thanks for the well wishes. Well, all the best to you, Andy. Citizen Ronan, great stream. Thank you, man. What Geeks Do, great stream. And Loud Tor says, you need a thick skin to do indie comics. There's always someone who wants to start up. Always. And it's, it's just kind of what it is. I know a lot of people wish it wasn't that way, but it's never going to not be that way. So just prepare to endure, and you'll find a way how to do that. I got books to print up. Blood Realm 15 to 18, almost done printing. Almost done. Only 20 more books to print. And then everything goes to Rob. So Rob, I think he told me he has like 80 or 85 bundles left to ship out from his campaign. He's got a bunch of books on the way, and he's going to have the rest more of them going very soon. I'm thinking probably by Monday or Tuesday, everything will be done and shipped out to him. And then on my end anyway, Blood Realm 15 to 18 will be completely shipped, printed, all that good stuff. And that's kind of exciting. It's the first time we've ever printed anything in-house. And so far, people have really liked it. So far, people have really liked the in-house printing just across the board. So I'm really grateful for that. And I hope that people continue to like it. So we'll see. All right, everyone, take it easy. Have a wonderful night and even better tomorrow. And I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much again. All the best.